Happy 2020 and welcome to the SK Newsline Year in Review 2019 as we recap the top stories of the previous year in St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm Andre Huey, your presenter. The first place to start is naturally January 2019, and one of the big stories that occurred that month is the political and social crisis in Venezuela. And even though Venezuela is thousands of miles away from St. Kitts and Nevis, the impact of that crisis did reach our shores. Venezuelans on the island hosted a protest on the bayfront next to the cenotaph in Fort Lands. I was there and filed this report in January 2019. I'm Andre Huey on location here at the cenotaph in Fort Lands Bastille, the scene of a protest action carried out by Venezuelans living here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, the protest is against the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro. Maduro was recently sworn in and re-elected as president of Venezuela, but many Venezuelans in Venezuela are protesting, and the ones here, some of them here, are protesting his legitimacy as president. They're claiming that he was re-elected through electoral fraud, and they want him to step down as president of Venezuela. Now, at the moment, it's just a few minutes going up to 6 o'clock. Just a handful of them are here right now. We understand there are more that's supposed to be joining the protest later on, and they'll be holding up placards. We're going to be speaking with them to get an insight as to what it is that they're protesting, why is it that they're protesting, and how effective they think their protest will be here in St. Kitts Nevis, miles away. They're actually just a few chains away from the Venezuelan embassy here in Fort Lands.
We are all here in support to Venezuela President Guaido. So in Venezuela we are in dictatorship right now, and it's been really hard for all Venezuelans. So we don't have food, we don't have medicine, and thank God we got a light, basically a light, because Maduro has been in dictatorship for a long time, and we have been waiting for this day. Today is a big day for Venezuela.
Everything is getting worse. There are no rights there for the Venezuela. You cannot say nothing against the government, because if you say something, you go into the jail. Or if you are on the street, they take you in the jail. So we don't have any rights over there. We are here to support them, because today is a big day for Venezuela. As almost the whole people of Venezuela, they are actually supporting the new President Guaido. By constitution now, by the constitution, he is the president of Venezuela, the new president of Venezuela. And everybody, and that's why we are here also, support him. That we want to change, and this is our time. We thought that we lost the hopes. Everybody was thinking we cannot do anything else, and then we find again this hope. So that's why we are here supporting. Even we are far from our family, far from our country, but our heart is over there. From the military people that we have, they are also part of us. They are not of the government. They are our people. Why you are fighting with your own people? Why you are killing them? Because already from last night they are on the street and they are killing people. We don't know how many now, but they are fighting. For which reason? They have food in the house? No. They have medicine? No. How is the hospital? How are the hospitals? Not all the hospitals are good in Venezuela. You don't find medicine, no food, and when you find food, it's expensive that nobody can get it.
So they heard it there from the Venezuelans, some of the Venezuelans living here in St. Kitts with their protest action here at Fort Lands, right next to the cenotaph here in Bastille, few minutes going up to 6 o'clock in the evening. People took the streets of Caracas and other towns in Venezuela protesting the legitimacy of the President Nicolas Maduro. But here in St. Kitts Nevis, those are a small number. They're here out in their numbers protesting President Maduro. Of course, we'll see what happens in the next few days. Reporting for SK Newsline from Fort Lands in Bastille, I'm Andre Huey. Also in January 2019, the St. Kitts Solid Waste Management Corporation announced the acquisition of new garbage trucks. The ceremony was held on the last Friday of January at the SWMC headquarters. The Solid Waste Management Corporation on Friday commissioned 3 brand new garbage trucks worth some 1.5 million EC dollars at a commissioning ceremony at the SWMC headquarters in Taylor's Range. After years of enduring challenges with old trucks, the corporation was able to finally purchase new trucks without incurring any debts, quite similar to how it constructed its 4-year-old state-of-the-art headquarters. Speaking at the commissioning ceremony, Director of the SWMC and CEO of the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority, SCASPA, Mr. Denzel James, said the new garbage trucks are part of the mandate of the Board of Directors of the corporation in improving the efficiency of keeping the country clean.
Our job at the corporation therefore calls for a smart handling of waste, which not only includes the processing and recycling as per the latest technology, but also the collection and transportation of this waste to the landfill in an efficient, effective, sustainable, and timely manner.
Minister with responsibility for the SWMC, Mr. Eugene Hamilton, lauded the SWMC on this milestone achievement and highlighted the gravity of the waste collection problem in St. Kitts and why the investment in new trucks was necessary.
In this island, some 40,000 people with thousands of businesses and other institutions. There are only 11 garbage trucks. There's just one truck that we hope is in good working condition to collect your garbage. If you do a little bit of math. It means, you see, if you divide the 40,000 by 11, you get some 3,636 people. So there's just one truck for the service of 3,600 people as we speak, and this is including those in private sector who are providing service to us.
General Manager of the SWMC, Mr. Keith Lee Phillip, explained some of the features of the new trucks.
The compactors are 20 yards, 20 cubic yards. 20 cubic yards ensure that they can pick up a good amount of garbage prior to returning to the landfill. So there are 20 cubic yards. The brand is McNeilus, and it's what we call rear loaded. By rear loaded, it means that they can lift and take bins and dump them into the rear of the vehicles. These are known for the efficiency and the versatility. It's sturdy. The controls are in an area that can be easily reached by the loaders.
Meanwhile, Senior Minister Vance Amory, who spoke on behalf of the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, who are both away on government business, stressed the importance of a clean environment and the role these new trucks will play.
Half of the time, or most of the time, when we think of keeping the country clean, people tend to concentrate only on the areas, the public areas. That's where their mind goes. That is important because, as you heard from the minister and from the chairman, if we have unsightly areas where garbage, old vehicles have been deposited indiscriminately, it creates the kind of off-putting kind of feeling, not just for visitors, because half the time we think of only visitors, but our concern must be for ourselves.
The corporation also used the opportunity to introduce the new uniforms for SWMC workers. The trucks were blessed by Canon Dwayne Cassius, followed by the ribbon cutting by Ministers Eugene Hamilton and Vance Amory, and Director Denzel James. The trucks will be placed in rotation and in operation as of Monday, January 28, 2019. The trucks will begin operation in communities comprising Minister Hamilton's constituency, St. Christopher, number 8. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank announced in January 2019 that they will be switching from paper to polymer notes. We filed this report. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, on Wednesday hosted the media launch of the new EC dollar polymer notes via live video conference at the ECCB agency in Grenada. Governor of the ECCB, Timothy Antwine, said the $50 notes bearing the image of his long-serving predecessor, Sir K. Dwight Venner, will be the first denomination of the new polymer notes to be distributed at the start of June.
Today, we unveil the first note in the EC family of notes, the EC $50. This new note bears the image of our late great governor, Sir K. Dwight Venner. And once again, I hail the colossal contribution of my illustrious predecessors. Let's give a round of applause.
The governor disclosed that polymer notes are in and ready for distribution in all but 2 countries of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, the ECCU.
Mostly every country, with the exception of Angola and Montserrat, where they still have high stocks of paper notes. So there's no point in putting in polymer if they stock up on paper. As the paper depletes, eventually we put in polymer. In other countries that have higher usage levels or rates, including Grenada, St. Lucia, Antigua, all the way up, polymer notes are already in country and available for distribution as the commercial banks come to the central bank. So for a period of time, you will see both, and it's difficult to project. The other issue is when we introduced actual notes. So some notes were introduced 3 years ago, 4 years ago, paper notes that is. Some were introduced a year ago. So they have to phase out.
The governor praised the new polymer notes as clean, safer, and stronger than the current paper notes. He said that persons with paper notes do not need to destroy or get rid of them for polymer notes, as these are still legal tender and will be used together with the new notes until depleted from circulation.
The circulation of the EC notes will be phased. As unfit paper notes are returned to the central bank, and our current inventory of paper notes is depleted, they will be replaced by polymer notes. Therefore, as a practical matter, the public ought to expect that both our paper and polymer notes will be in circulation at the same time. And I want to assure you that they are both legal tender. So you don't need to rush to the bank and bring in your paper to get polymer. They will, and let's be clear, there is no point at this stage in destroying absolutely good paper notes. That would be wasteful and irresponsible.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the ECCB Monetary Council and the Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. Keith Mitchell, praised the ECCB for its leadership in launching the new polymer notes.
I must therefore commend Governor Timothy Antoine, who had a vision for this development. I must also recognize the critical role played by his team of the bank, who supported him in the execution of this important historic initiative. It was just over a year ago that the Monetary Council, acting on the advice of the bank, took a bold decision to change the material on which the EC banknotes are printed from paper to polymer.
Governor Antoine said other denominations of the new polymer notes will be rolled out around September this year, depending on the demands of the various member countries of the ECCU. The new notes have additional features to assist the visually impaired to identify the respective notes, an aspect praised at the media launch by Sherry Hamlet from the Resource Center for the Blind. Lady Linda Venner, widow of Sir Cade White Venner, was presented encapsulated notes by Prime Minister Keith Mitchell. Some employees of the ECCB and representatives of the local banking sector in St. Kitts and Nevis were present at the media launch at the ECCB headquarters in Bird Rock. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline. As we recap the month of February 2019, we start things on the sports front in St. Kitts. There was a major announcement relating to the acquisition of the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots by new owners. The St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots franchise has a new owner. City Sports Hong Kong, part of the City Group of companies, has purchased the franchise from St. Kitts and Nevis investor Dr. Uday Nayak. The announcement was made in a press conference on Monday at the Cayenne Jet private facility with the new owners, Dr. Nayak, and COO of the Hero Caribbean Premier League, CPL, Pete Russell. Minister of Sport and Deputy Prime Minister Sean Richards was also in attendance. Dr. Nayak explained the reason he sold the franchise.
We are an aviation company. We lease aircraft. We own this Cayenne Jet private terminal at the airport. By no means am I, by selling the team, withdrawing my investment from St. Kitts. As a matter of fact, I would look at more aviation-related activities at the airport, which is our core business. Selling the team was the cricket was the only non-core business in our group. And we live in London, we work from London, but we have this facility here, so it was always difficult to coordinate, and it was more out of passion for the game that we got involved in this. And I will continue my patronage of the team. I mean, unless he moves out of St. Kitts, which I hope he will never do that. But as long as the team is here, I will be a faithful follower, and I will support in any way we can.
The company is headed by Sushil Kumar and Narayan Kunder and were based in Hong Kong. Mr. Kumar told media at Monday's press conference that the state of the franchise is excellent and you're looking forward to the new season.
Our company has been looking into various opportunities for expansion beyond Hong Kong, and when this opportunity in St. Kitts and Nevis came across, we happily grabbed the opportunity, and I thank Dr. Nayak and his team for for having laid a wonderful foundation for the team here, and we are happy to take this forward to the next level. The Patriot franchise is actually in good shape, and it provided an attractive investment opportunity for us.
Meanwhile, Sports Minister Sean Richards lauded the contributions of Dr. Nayak to the franchise and the St. Kitts Nevis community and expressed hope that the new owners would also contribute to the St. Kitts and Nevis society in like manner.
I said earlier that under the ownership of Dr. Nayak, we not only saw the progress of the Patriots, but in terms of becoming involved in the local community. That is also a feature that we saw and one that we are most grateful for. We would hope that the new owners would become just as involved.
City Sports are not new to cricket franchise ownership. They own City K-Tak in Hong Kong, T20 Blitz, as well as being the former owners of Bloom City Blazers, a team who are scheduled to step out in cricket South Africa's now defunct Global T20 League. Venkatesh Sidar of City Sports disclosed on Monday that they sought opportunities to invest in a franchise in the CPL, and they have been in touch with Pete Russell of the CPL to that regard.
And as soon as an opportunity was available, we were keen on making a move, and we were very happy that the team that became available was the Patriots, because we have seen in the last 2 years how the Patriots team has changed and evolved and grown, and also the tremendous support that the St. Kitts and Nevis fans have given to Patriots. The Patriots is like really the team of St. Kitts and Nevis, and it represents the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis across the world. And so which is why we decided to go ahead and purchase the franchise of SKN Patriots.
The Patriots team has been part of the CPL since 2015, finished as runners-up in 2017 and in third place in 2018. The current team is led by Chris Gale, who has been at the forefront of the team's success during his 2 years as captain. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline. The year 2019 was one of intrigue, and this story was no exception. Reports were that the Director of Public Prosecution, Valston Graham, publicly expressed concerns with the manner in which Magistrate Donna Harris deals with members of his staff. Magistrate Harris happens to be the sister of Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris. The concern of the DPP was seconded by the Bar Association, and the matter was eventually resolved. St. Kitts and Nevis Bar Association said Friday it has received assurances that legal practitioners and litigants will be treated with respect by Magistrate Donna Harris. The Bar Association's statement Friday followed one issued earlier in the week by its president, Dahlia Joseph Rowe, that gave support to a decision of the Director of Public Prosecution, Mr. Valston Graham, to pull his prosecutorial officers and orderlies from the courtroom of Magistrate Harris, a sister of Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris, after she threw out a Crown Counsel. In its statement Friday, the Bar Association again commended Mr. Graham for taking a strong stand in defense of a member of the Bar, Crown Counsel Tishon Vasquez, following the recent incident involving Magistrate Harris. Referring to responses from the public, including attorney Mr. Terence Byron Jr., the Bar Association noted the various comments, allegations, and discussions in the media recently, some of which are intended to portray the Bar Association in a negative light and make allegations against Mr. Vasquez and others to distract the public from the issues at hand. The sole focus and aim of the Council of the St. Kitts and Nevis Bar Association in the recent issue is to see that the Magistrates' Court is conducted in a way that is professional and respectful to all who use the services of the court, including attorneys at law, so that we have a justice system that inspires confidence in those who approach the court seeking justice, the bar said. The bar noted that as a result of the request by DPP Graham for a meeting, a speedy resolution has been reached in the interest of the administration of justice, and look forward to the Magistrates' Court being conducted in a manner which respects the role of legal practitioners as being integral to our system of justice and the protection of the rights of litigants. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. February was a violent month as 3 people were killed in the space of a week, including Valentine's Day. More in this report. It has been a violent week in St. Kitts and Nevis with several shooting incidents leading to 3 homicides. Police are investigating a shooting incident which occurred Monday night on Ponds Pasture in which a man was fatally wounded. The incident occurred at about 10 p.m. on Monday, February 11th. Investigations so far have revealed that 28-year-old Eric Thompson, also known as Junjun of Ponds Pasture, had arrived at his home when he was shot several times about the body by a lone gunman. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Members of the crime scene unit visited and processed the scene and collected items of evidential value. Investigations into the matter are ongoing. Meanwhile, forensic pathologist Dr. Valerie Alexandrov performed autopsies on the bodies of 33-year-old Musa Warner and 22-year-old Shaquem Stevens on Sunday, February 10th. Dr. Alexandrov concluded that Stevenson's death was a result of gunshot wounds to the head and Warner's death was a result of multiple gunshot wounds to the body. Sometime after 10 p.m. on Friday, February 8th, 33-year-old Musa Ziggy Warner and 22-year-old Shaquem Warner were shot multiple times about the body by masked gunmen. They were transported to the JNF hospital by the Emergency Medical Service, where they later succumbed to their injuries. Members of the crime scene unit visited and processed the scene. They collected items of evidential value. In other police news, a quantity of drugs was seized by the police during a joint search operation Thursday, February 7th. Officers from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force and soldiers from the St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force uncovered 325 grams of cocaine and 111 grams of cannabis that were hidden in an abandoned house in the Newtown area. No one was held accountable for the find, but police said investigations into the matter are ongoing. The police have pledged to continue their efforts to eradicate the trade of illegal firearms and drugs from communities within the Federation. I'm Andre Huey, reporting for SKN Newsline. SKN Newsline had the opportunity in 2019 to visit 3 countries on various assignments. The first of those trips was to Venezuela, late January, under the auspices of the Embassy of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The purpose of the trip was to attend an ordinary meeting of the Banco de Caribe, a bank that has provided assistance to countries that are members of ALBA, a Venezuelan alternative to the Organization of American States, OAS. Yours truly attended, where I joined with other journalists from the Caribbean who used the opportunity to get insights into the situation on the ground in Venezuela. Here are 2 reports I filed while in Venezuela. I'm Andre Huey for SK Newsline. I'm coming to you from Caracas, Venezuela, at a mall in an area called Las Proceras, and we've had a chance to speak to some of the persons here. We spoke to persons in the supermarket, one of the supermarkets here, as well as in the mall itself. We've gotten a dichotomy of views, a mixture of views. There are people who support the government of Nicolas Maduro. There are others who support Juan Guaido, and most of the sentiments that were expressed from persons, regardless of who they support, is that the prices for goods in the supermarket are quite high. We looked at some of the basic items. Bread, for example, runs in the region of just over 3,000 bolivares, which is close to $1 US. But the minimum wage is about 18,000 bolivares. And so when you think of bread selling at that price, you're looking at almost a quarter of what persons would get as minimum wage. But let's hear the views of some of the persons we spoke to in the supermarket, as well as in and around the mall itself. And like I said, there's a mixture of views depending on who you speak with. There are some who support the government of Nicolas Maduro, and there are others who support Juan Guaido. There are others, for the most part, who want to see a peaceful resolution to what's happening in Venezuela.
Se ha movido de difícil de conseguir.
He says that Venezuelans are living like a nervous moments right now, a nervous time, because it's a really unknown scenario. And he says that He has been presenting some difficulties to provide from food and medicines because of the financial block. So he says that if the aid that it's coming is good and it's not provoking I don't know, like a war, a political crisis, he's well welcome. But if not, what is the point of that?
Does he support President Nicolas Maduro Moros, or does he support interim President Juan Guaido?
¿Usted apoya al presidente Maduro o apoya al presidente interino?
A la Asamblea Nacional.
He says that he supports the National Assembly, not Guaido or nor Maduro, but the National Assembly and their law.
Does he support military intervention in Venezuela?
Dice que si usted apoya una intervención militar en Venezuela.
No, no lo apoyo. Pero tampoco apoyo una intervención rusa ni cubana, ni china.
He doesn't support. He doesn't support military intervention from the USA, but doesn't.
The area of Los Praceras is heavily guarded because a military camp is located in this vicinity. The mall was no exception, as the presence of the security forces was very visible. One of them inquired of our hosts and translators about what the Caribbean journalists were doing. The matter seemed to have been resolved, and we were allowed to continue.
Continuing with the question, he said that he doesn't support the U.S. intervention, a military intervention from the U.S., but he doesn't support any intervention from Russia, China, or Cuba.
Hambre, hambre.
He says that
la ayuda humanitaria. Aquí ese hombre miente.
Un momento.
Miente. Aquí pasamos hambre. Yo paso hambre. Todos pasamos hambre. Los niños muriéndose, desnutridos. Queremos la ayuda humanitaria y que venga a Estados Unidos y lo saque. Porque ya basta. Nosotros tenemos hambre, necesidades. Ya basta de ser mentiroso. Ya que se vaya, que nos den paz.
Claro, que se vaya, así que he's saying that he doesn't support Maduro because he's the one who's restraining their food, and she doesn't find any medicines or she doesn't find any food or anything, and she says that Maduro has to leave.
Ask her who she supports, President Maduro or interim President Juan Guaido.
Si usted apoya al presidente Maduro o apoya al presidente interino Juan Guaidó.
No, apoyo al presidente Juan Guaidó, porque quiero que en verdad aquí entre la ayuda humanitaria, porque en verdad hay hambre en Venezuela, lo hay, y hay mucha desnutrición, muchos niños recogiendo de la basura, y se ha incrementado mucho la delincuencia.
She said that she supports Juan Guaidó because there are so many kids with the malnutrition, desnutrition, and there are many people eating from the garbage. And she said that she needs the intervention from the U.S.
What about the subsidies that the government puts on basic food items to cushion the impact on the...
El gobierno pone como subsidios, o sea, protege los precios del pollo, del huevo, ¿sabes?
Nosotros no tenemos acceso.
She said that she doesn't have the access to that products. They have this distribution system that sometimes get by the corruption and the corrupted people that give us, que se les dan a sus amigos, su familia, los productos subsidiados. And they give us to the family, to their friends, the ones that distribute the subsidized products.
Yes. So she supports Mr. Maduro. What does she think about Mr. Juan Guaido?
¿Qué opinas de Juan Guaidó? She says that Juan Guaidó is someone that is not a man, is not a respectable man, because a man doesn't give her, he gives her face to the public, and he doesn't, she thinks that Juan Guaidó is giving his body to make him president, is like the reference. And Maduro was elected democratic in a universal manner, and she supported the government.
As we were about to wrap up our interview, the security personnel again stepped in and it was time to go. Despite the animated discussions between our hosts from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Venezuela and the officers, we were assured by her that everything was okay.
And so there you have it, some of the views of persons here in Venezuela at a mall in Las Proceras here in Caracas. Reporting for SK Newsline from Caracas, Venezuela, I'm Andre Huey.
The Venezuelan embassy in Bastia St. Kitts, like its counterparts in other countries, have been struggling to pay their bills, including staff, due to primarily U.S. sanctions on Venezuela. That country, for several months, has been unable to wire transfer funds to the account of its embassy in St. Kitts because the corresponding banks of local banks in Europe, Canada, and the U.S. are rejecting the funds. SK Newsline, while away in Venezuela, spoke to Venezuelan Vice Minister of Caribbean Affairs Raul Lecausi, who confirmed the situation and explained that solutions are being sought to permanently address the problem.
It is true that we have had faced difficulties transferring the money. It is to have the money in your account and trying to transfer to pay some accounts and to not being able to do it because sanctions is always a difficult thing to approach. We have working solutions. Unfortunately, because of the situation and because every time that we find a solution they try to block it, we cannot give you details. But yes, we have our personal and the debts that we have in each country are being addressed properly. We obviously are always going to have some delays, but we are currently, because basically we do have the money, we just need to get it there. So we have find solutions to get the money there.
We asked the Vice Minister if Petrocaribe could provide a solution.
Absolutely. Some of the solutions that we have found come from that way. The government, not only in St. Kitts, but in the all Eastern Caribbean countries have been very helpful, trying to help us to get these debts and to our people there to be covered.
Cryptocurrency, do you think the petro, for example, can be a solution to address some of these challenges that Venezuela has?
It's actually been a solution. It's already been worked well with some countries. We just need, of course, these new ideas, we need to put them formally on the table and to start looking for what other solutions we can bring, but definitely is part of the future, is definitely working, and it is going to be a success in the future, yes.
Meanwhile, the Vice Minister thanked CARICOM and continued to appeal for their support in the standoff between Venezuela and the U.S.
So we always thank not only in this scenario, but we also have to say that we applaud the role of leadership that Prime Minister Harris has had as chairman of CARICOM. We're looking forward to go to St. Kitts to attend to the intersessional meeting of CARICOM. Even if we're not part of CARICOM, we will be there because we do care a lot of our relationship with the Caribbean, and we say that we need to thank the position, not only that St. Kitts, but CARICOM has had, and going to New York, going to Uruguay, looking for solutions, because in the region you understand the risk of another different approach with the Venezuelan situation.
Crippling economic sanctions have continued to pile pressure on President Nicolas Maduro and his government, who has been accused by the U.S. and several in the international community as a dictator. International opponents of President Maduro have thrown their support behind opposition leader Juan Guaido, who has declared himself as interim president. There is a scarcity of food and medicines, and whatever food is available is very expensive due to hyperinflation. On the weekend, clashes erupted at the Venezuelan and Colombian borders as Venezuelans seeking to bring humanitarian aid delivered by the U.S. in Colombia were blocked by Venezuelan military troops stationed at the border. President Maduro has repeatedly accused the U.S. government of using the humanitarian aid as a political ploy to justify military intervention in Venezuela, and has since closed their borders with Colombia and Brazil. Maduro has also sought to expel Colombian diplomats from the country, breaking off ties with one of their closest South American neighbors. I'm Andre Huey, reporting for SKN Newsline. Now to March 2019, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank announced plans to launch a digital currency. I was at the media briefing at that time and filed this report.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank announced on Tuesday that it will be launching an EC dollar digital currency known as the CBDC using blockchain technology. The ECCB digital currency pilot project will be undertaken by BIT, a technology company from Barbados that is experienced in handling digital currency projects and is estimated to last 18 months starting within a year from now. The project will cost $8 million from start to implementation throughout the entire ECCU. 3 countries will be involved in the pilot initially. At a media conference on Tuesday at the ECCB, Governor of the Central Bank, Timothy Antwine, explained how this digital currency is expected to work.
The DXD, a digital dollar, will be used for financial transactions between consumers and merchants, including peer-to-peer transactions, all using smart devices. The objective of this pilot project is to assess the potential efficiency and welfare gains that could be achieved: deeper financial inclusion, faster economic growth, resilience, and competitiveness in the ECCU from the introduction of a digital sovereign currency.
Governor Antwine, in explaining the motivation behind launching this digital currency, said for the region to improve in its development prospects and performance, the digital transition must be expedited.
Here in the ECCU, we have to make sure time doesn't pass us by. We can no longer be patient when our economies and people demand transformation. I say the time to act is now. I issue a clarion call for partnership. We invite all of our banks, financial institutions, non-bank financial institutions to join us in this endeavor, to make their wallet services available so that we can test and learn from this experience. We also invite our telecommunication service providers and other technology companies to join in this effort, as together we develop a digital ecosystem from which our region can reap huge digital dividends.
And why did the ECCB decide to work with BIT on this project?
BIT first approached the ECCB about 2 years ago with the idea of a digital EC dollar. As we continued thinking about the transformation of the ECCU, we became intrigued by the possibility of a digital fiat currency for our region. At that time, we were finalizing our strategic plan, and we made a decision to test and learn more about this idea through a pilot. 5 months after the launch of our plan, we signed an MOU with BIT in March of last year to collaborate on this idea, and so our journey to this pilot began.
Meanwhile, Rawdon Adams, CEO of BIT, told journalists that this digital currency will help reduce the cost of doing business compared to a cash-driven system.
The cost of cash in particular is a good example. We knew when we started talking with the ECCB, for example, and I'm sure the governor will correct me if I get this wrong, but typically it costs the central bank here about $3.5 million US on average over the last 6 to 8 years simply to replace note and coin. So from a very simple operational perspective, it does make sense to see if you can lower that cost and do so in a way that has wider beneficial ramifications, and those trickle down into the economy. Businesses, and we've seen this from our work in Barbados, so this is not theory, this is practice. Supermarkets, for example, which have a very large cash take, have come to see that just as normal, as structural. Yet for every dollar of physical cash that they can move to a digital form, they make very significant savings. We have worked with a supermarket in Barbados where those savings can be over 80 or 90%. It depends exactly on what they're doing.
The governor disclosed that the CBDC pilot involves a securely minted and issued digital version of the EC dollar. The digital EC dollar will be issued by the ECCB and distributed by licensed bank and non-banking financial institutions in the ECCU. He said the pilot will be executed in 2 phases, development and testing for about 12 months, followed by rollout and implementation in pilot countries for about 6 months. Throughout the 18-month period of the pilot, there will be education initiatives to facilitate active public engagement throughout all member countries. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
A Labour candidate, Leon Natta, took the government to court over a matter that may become the guiding principle for civil servants who wish to enter politics. SK Newsline's Shiari Morton filed this report.
The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party scored a major victory in the court yet again. Labour Party candidate for Constituency 7, Leon Nelson Natter, an accountant at Her Majesty's Customs and Excise, won a case he brought against the government seeking to restrict him for being involved in politics. The government argued that Nelson Natter was contravening the Code of Ethics of Officers by being involved in political activity. Nelson Natter, in a letter dated October 10, 2018, for the Human Resource Management Department in the Office of Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris, was told he contravenes the Public Service Conduct and Ethics of Officers Code by being involved in political activity. The letter alleged that on or about the end of June 2018, Leonata Nelson did introduce yourself to a resident of Christchurch Village, Christchurch, St. Kitts, as a candidate of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party running against the Honourable Dr. Timothy Harris for the next general election, and also on or about the end of June 2018, did seek to solicit and or canvass support for your political campaign from a resident of Christchurch, St. Kitts. Sylvester Anthony, an attorney for a senior customs officer, said Monday's ruling by a High Court Judge Victor Ventos is not only a victory for his client, Senior Customs Officer Leonata Nelson, but a greater day for all public servants in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Anthony said, based on that report, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis brought disciplinary charges of misconduct against Nelson Natter. He added that today, not only Leon Nelson Natter, but all public servants who wish to run for political office are entitled to do so, and all public servants who wish to become involved in active politics can do so. He pointed out that His Lordship Mr. Justice Ventos was quite clear that it does not mean that the government cannot restrict them, but those restrictions have to be consistent with the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis. Nelson Natter addressed the matter during an interview on Freedom Radio's Issue program on Monday.
On October the 10th, they thought it best to give me this letter to charge me based on the Civil Service Code of engaging in politics. But today, Justice Ventos has declared that that is null and void. I have never been reprimanded by the authorities on my job for anything whatsoever. Never been. Well, here comes the Office of the Prime Minister trying to lay down rules and regulations against me for a post that I did some time ago. But this is really not about the post. This is about a young man now has a chance, an opportunity, a political career, which would see that this young man challenge him on the political platform. And so to ensure that he does not get that challenge from this young man, he tries every little bit, every way, every time to see what he can do to make sure this young man doesn't run against him.
A comment was not readily available for the government on this case. I am Chiari Morton reporting for SKN Newsline.
It was disappointing news for football fans in St. Kitts and Nevis as the national senior men's team failed to qualify for the CONCACAF Gold Cup, having failed to beat Suriname in the final match of the Nations League qualifying round. I took the trip to Suriname under the auspices of the St. Kitts and Nevis Football Association, the SKNFA, and provided coverage of that important match in Paramaribo, Suriname.
St. Kitts and Nevis lost out to Suriname 2-0 on Saturday night in the CONCACAF Nations League matchup, the crucial one, that if St. Kitts and Nevis had won that game, would have qualified for the CONCACAF Gold Cup for the first time. That was not to be, however, as Suriname came out very strong, really put St. Kitts and Nevis to the sword from the get-go, and was able to come away with a 2-0 victory at the Andre Kemperveen Stadium in Suriname. The crowd support came out for Suriname. Just over 1,000 persons came out supporting the host side.
and they certainly got their money's worth as Suriname came out victors 2-0. After the match, there was a press conference held at the stadium. We first heard from coach of St. Kitts Nevis team, Jacques Passy, and captain of the team, Romain Sawyers. Coach Passy basically lauded the Suriname team. They basically said they played very well, and the strategy that he put forward did not quite work, and Suriname came away victors.
And unfortunately at this time, the strategy was not right. Maybe I should have attacked since the very first minute. That's something that I will have to analyze, but you are right. We did not feel the urgent need to attack since the very first moment because we didn't want a do or die from minute number 1. We wanted to control the game and then attack and then start scoring before Suriname started scoring. That was a strategy. The strategy did not work out. That is football.
People really more chance.
I don't think so. I think you are wrong in what you're saying. In the first half, a ball was sent to the space to our number 15 player, and he had a one-on-one. In the second half, we had a combination football in which Tishan Hanley had a one-on-one. We had several set pieces that were dangerous. And yes, I feel that our attack could have been better, but what do you want me to tell you? That I'm satisfied with the attack and not?
Captain of the team, Romain Sawyers, spoke to the press, the Suriname media present at the press conference, and he, on behalf of the team, accepted responsibility for the loss. And after both men spoke to the local media here in Suriname, Dean Gorey, the coach of the Suriname team, also addressed the media, and he explained his strategy behind the win. He also spoke about the St. Kitts Nevis team and what he thought in terms of the strategy he used against St. Kitts Nevis.
Well, St. Kitts, we studied them. I studied them. With the boys, we had a game plan. We knew their strength. Obviously, their biggest strength was the captain. And if we get them in control, then that will be our biggest asset for the game. And that the game plan worked. And I said it same as in the picture. Exactly what we played, what we trained in our surveyors. That's how we work.
So again, the results are Suriname 2, St. Kitts Nevis 0. Disappointing result for the Federation, which means they will not move on to the CONCACAF Gold Cup, which was the big prize. However, the St. Kitts Nevis will compete in the B division of the CONCACAF Nations League when that begins around September, October later this year. Coming to you from Paramaribo in Suriname, I'm Andre Huey reporting. The March 21 visit of their Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall to St. Kitts Nevis climaxed with a reception at Government House, where the Prince of Wales applauded the local government for its leadership on many issues in the international arena. While in St. Kitts and Nevis, their Royal Highnesses visited several historical sites. This included the Berkeley Memorial, erected in 1883, the National Museum, which is housed in a building that was constructed in 1857. The Prince of Wales visited the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park and was invited to unveil a plaque commemorating his visit to the fortress, which is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Duchess of Cornwall visited Hermitage Plantation, the oldest existing wooden house in the Caribbean. Back in St. Kitts, following the reception at Government House on Camp Spring Field, their Royal Highnesses traveled to the RLB International Airport at around 7 p.m., where the Governor-General and Prime Minister bade them farewell. Still to come on the SK Newsline Year in Review, a mother seeks answers about her son's death and a war of words between the Prime Minister and a billionaire. All that and more on 2019 SKN Newsline Year in Review.
At Nagico, the things that matter to you matter to us. Like your boat when you're at sea and you get away from everything. Your home and the security of your daughter's things. And the car that you've had for too long, but after all these years, you just can't let go. At Nagico, we're about much more than just insurance. We're about the big things and the small things that mean everything.
You care about what goes on your skin. You care about the ingredients, organic and natural products. We have Rituals brand, Victoria's Secret, and much more. Discover the collection of prestige natural beauty. There are too many chemicals. Time to change. Go to Lucky's Duty Free at King's Pavilion Hotel on Bay Road, Bastia. Treat yourself as a princess. Also, Bath and Body Works coming soon. Check us out on Facebook. Open hours are from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Give us a call, 466-7059. Lucky's Duty Free.
Quality Diagnostic Laboratory, your newest partner in your healthcare. We offer the latest in on-island clinical laboratory testing. A comprehensive range of blood tests, urine tests, stool and other testing such as cholesterol and sugar testing, as well as hormone, kidney and liver functions, and many more. Quality Diagnostic Laboratory is located at the corner of Keon Street and Fines Avenue, opposite the Greenlands pasture. Our opening hours from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday are designed with you in mind. We are also open on Saturdays, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. for your further convenience. Call or contact us at 465-6657 or email us at info@qualitydiagnosticlab.com. Quality Diagnostic Laboratory. Excellence in performance.
Banners, commercial signs, decal printing, canvas prints, license plates, posters. We at Multigraphics are dedicated to providing quality products and service to our customers. Our team takes pride in the craftsmanship and is passionate about its work. Every job, large or small, is important. Most of our customers come to us through referrals. That's because our number one priority is service. We serve a wide variety of customers, such as restaurants, retail stores, manufacturers, trucking companies, and many more. Our capabilities include design, production, and installation. How can we help? We are located at Bird Rock at the Woods Right compound. Call us at 869-763-1511 or 784-491-7599. Multigraphics.
Sari DVN, a Caribbean gospel artist, is now available for bookings. Sari the DVN is a very versatile artist performing various genres of contemporary gospel music, such as R&B gospel, traditional jazz, praise and worship,
God deserves all nations of praise,
and reggae with hits Fear God and I'm a Winner.
I'm a winner. If everybody in this world could just fear God.
Sari DVN is based in St. Kitts and Nevis in the Caribbean and is available for bookings for local, regional and international events, concerts and conventions. Sari has a powerful testimony and as such is available for speaking engagements. For bookings, email saridrecordsinc@gmail.com or Donovan Survivor Grant @gmail.com or via WhatsApp or call 1-869-668-6625. Also visit his website saridenterprise.com for bookings, learn more of his ministry, and even order from his Sarid clothing line. Book Sari DVN today. Welcome back. A mother from Guyana came to St. Kitts in April 2019 to investigate what happened to her son who was working in the Federation. According to her, no one has been able to explain to her what killed her son, who died from an accident on the job. To add to her concerns, she claimed she's getting little to no help from the Guyanese Honorary Council on St. Kitts. A mother mourning the loss of her son in a boating accident on the job is calling for a thorough investigation into the incident. Michelle Gomes of Guyana said her son, Nathan Alicock, who worked on the boat Midnight Chief, died from an accident in March, but she is getting conflicting reports on how he died.
My son working on a boat, Midnight Chief, left home last February, but working with the company since he was 18 years old. We get a call on the 12th that he was injured. March, that he was injured on the boat. Asked how. They say that he was pinned to a container An excavator pin him to a container. They say he hook the lever and the excavator pin him to the container. After then we came here the 15th of March. When we came here from the airport, we got a letter for sign from this office, Upkins office. We didn't sign it because it wasn't relevant. To take us to the hospital. Christopher take us to the hospital. From the hospital, carry the guest house, and there is where we remain until this date. The police report that we get, it ain't got nothing stating that it was being investigated. Nothing like that. No crew member name, no statement given, nothing. They're saying it's an excavator, but the pathologist say he see two metal pin him.
Gomes traveled from Guyana with a family friend after getting a call about the death of her son. They both have been in St. Kitts and Nevis to address the matters pertaining to her son's death, but she said she still lacks some crucial information.
The insurance sent us the letter to sign, and after we read it and we see it wasn't appropriate, I didn't sign it, and they sent back a next letter with the letterhead coming from the insurance for me to sign for the arrange for burial and whatever. That's all I know about the company.
That's the only interaction you've had with the company.
Yes. And oh, sorry. I knew that my son had a month's salary outstanding. I asked them for provide it because we didn't have no cashier. And Damian Hopkins, he came and gave us the money. I signed for it on his pay slip. And never see or heard anything back from them till now. All I need to know is what went wrong with me, child. Nothing else. I need a proper investigation to be done. I need to know what went wrong with me, child. He came here to work. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was working with this company, Midnight Chief.
SK Newsline contacted Mr. Damon Hobson of Hobson Enterprises, who affirmed that Nathan did not work for his company. Gomes has been assisted by at least 2 Guyanese living in St. Kitts and Nevis, as according to her, she has not been getting much cooperation from the Guyanese council rep on the island.
Yeah, she came a couple of days after we came here. Give me story to her. She was to get back to me, give me a card. I called she about 10 times, never get her. Go to her office, because I give she some of my son's document for run through. She said she can photocopy it and bring it back. She never did. I had to go to the office to find out about it. Call she phone, and get it. And probably like somebody must tell she that I was asking for her, and she show up on the Thursday. She already went and get the report from the station, had it in her bag, and didn't even tell me that she get it. And this morning we go back to the hospital for collect the medical report. She already had a paper there stating that she come for collect the medical report. I don't want she to play no part in this.
SK Newsline spoke to the General Counsel of Guyana in St. Kitts and Nevis, Denise Allain, who explained that she has been informed by the relevant authorities that a police report on the incident is not yet complete, as investigations are still ongoing. She also said that she has been assisting Ms. Gomes by gathering the relevant information from the competent authorities, and when this is complete, it will be forwarded to the government of Guyana. I am Andre Huey, reporting for SKN Newsline. In a related story from March 2019, the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party responded to a claim from the government that the law governing whether civil servants can be involved in politics was implemented under the Denzel Douglas regime. Here is Shari Morton with what was reported in April 2019.
Opposition leader Dr. Denzel Douglas has denied claims that the codes that were recently struck down by the courts in the case of Leanna Nelson versus the government as being those his former administration implemented. Nata Nelson was deemed to have contravened the Civil Service Code of Ethics as it pertains getting involved in active politics. But the court essentially ruled that government can restrict public servants from becoming involved in politics. But those restrictions have to be consistent with the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis. Speaking at a press conference on Wednesday, March 29th, Dr. Douglas challenged the notion that the Labour Party crafted the codes which are being enforced by this government.
The law that has been deemed unconstitutional is a law that has been with us since colonial times. I'm sure it goes back all the way into the 50s. And several administrations over the years, as I've seen in the press, written in the press, have sought to have many attempts to revisit that law. In fact, I can tell you, when back in 1987, I accepted the election of the delegates at conference, the Labour Party conference. I accepted the election to become the deputy chair of the party. That law was used against me. As a result of that, applied by the Dr. Simmons administration. And so this is no law that Douglas created.
Douglas says his government revisited the act in 2014 and brought a version before the National Assembly. The opposition leader was supported by his deputy leader, the Honorable Marcella Liburd.
This new law now says there are no restrictions. So I think that civil servants who were wronged, whose rights were infringed, now have an opportunity to have some sort of compensation for their rights.
The Honorable Convis Maynard also supported Dr. Douglas.
There is no law that prohibits what happened with the Dr. Douglas case. There is no Douglas law that Leon Natter was fighting against, as Dr. Douglas clarified, a colonial law that had gone through its iterations of improvement and whatnot and had some left to do. This government is all about deception. Total, rampant deception, and we have had enough.
I am Chiari Morton for SKN Newsline.
On the sports front, in the month of April, the Charlestown Primary School successfully defended their Gulf Insurance Primary School Championships at the Nevis Athletic Stadium. Again, we join Chiari Morton.
Good evening, I am Chiari Morton here with SK Newsline. I am here at the 2019 Primary School Championship where Charlestown Primary School won. They defended their title. I am here with one of the coaches and he would give you a rundown on the races and training and everything.
Well, my name is Ryston Queely, the coach at the Charlestown, one of the coaches at the Charlestown Primary School. As you guys may know, we participated in the 100 meter, the 200 meter, the 4x1s, the 800, the 1200s, and the 4x4s. I think the children went out with a purpose. They went out and execute a task that the coaches asked them to do. The children went out there and they had fun. As you guys may know, we was dominant in the 400 meter. We didn't do so well in the 60 meter. But in the other races we were dominant. But overall, even though we was dominant in those 60 meter, those 1 or 2 points counted at the end. I must give credit to the other schools. They came out with a purpose also. They came out, they showcased their talent. The kids came out, they had fun, they execute what the other coaches taught them. And you can see the friendship within those children. At the end of the day, you got to remember those children are kids. And this meet, for me, show me these kids making friendship with other schools, and that's something I really like, because in this day and age, you know, the gang violence, etc. But to see these kids come out and make friends with each other, that's something I hold to heart.
And how do you feel defending your title?
Well, I feel wonderful defending my title. It's always harder to defend than to just come and win. Last year we came and we won, but this year I set my program. The other coaches and I had an input in the program. We came out and we just set our program, execute the task, put the children on their strict diet, and the strategy worked. So hopefully we could use that same strategy going into next year to defend again and try to triple it.
The scores and places for the schools. First place, Charlestown Primary School with 218 points. Second place, St. Thomas Primary School with 184 points. Third place, Joycelyn Liebert Primary School with 138 points. Fourth place, Ivor Walters Primary School with 131 points. Fifth place, Elizabeth Pemberton Primary School with 65 points. Sixth place, Maud Cross Preparatory with 52 points. Seventh place, Violet O. Jeffords Nichols Primary School with 48 points. Eighth place, Nevis Academy with 18 points. Ninth place, St. James Primary School with 15 points, amounting to the total of 869 points. I am Chiari Morton reporting for SKN Newsline.
The much-anticipated verdict in the Denzel Douglas diplomatic passport case was finally handed down, not to the liking of the government. Attorney General Vincent Barron vowed to appeal. Attorney General Vincent Barron has said the government has begun the process to appeal the diplomatic passport case involving former Prime Minister Dr. Denzel Douglas. Mr. Barron made this disclosure at a recent press conference of the Prime Minister at government headquarters.
He was found not to be in breach. We accepted that decision of the High Court judge, but in consultation with senior counsel, we were advised and we have determined to pursue it further, and we have filed an appeal to the Court of Appeal. We have subsequently filed an application for an expedited appeal, which was heard some 2 weeks ago by a single judge in St. Lucia, who has granted that application, and so we await the Court of Appeal to determine a date when that expedited appeal would be heard.
Mr. Barron insisted that the government has a case to prove that Dr. Douglas, possessing a diplomatic passport from the Commonwealth of Dominica, is in breach of the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis.
And we expect that that question will be answered. It is an important question, because if the judgment as handed down here stands, it means that every member of parliament on any side of the aisle, whether in opposition or the government, can have a passport from any island in the Caribbean who is a friendly government. One of the bases on which we were told that Dr. Douglas did not show any allegiance to Dominica, the country in which he has a diplomatic passport, was that he was granted a political courtesy by a former colleague, Prime Minister colleague. It would seem as though our Prime Minister, when he went to St. Vincent the other day, could have been granted a political courtesy and have a St. Vincent passport. I wouldn't accept. But I would hope not.
The Attorney General is confident the government side will prevail in this appeal and is hoping the matter will be brought up as soon as possible.
We believe that the framers of the Constitution saw somebody who showed an adherence, allegiance to a foreign state, had divided loyalty, and could not fully represent St. Kitts and Nevis and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So that is a matter under appeal. We wait to hear when that date would be set. We expect it to be done shortly, and we would inform you when that does happen.
In February, the High Court dismissed the case brought against the opposition leader, Dr. Denzel Douglas, that claimed by possessing and using a diplomatic passport from Dominica, he was found in breach of Section 28 of the Constitution, which claims he was in allegiance to a foreign power and as such cannot be a member of the National Assembly. Justice Trevor Ward, in his ruling, found that Dr. Douglas obtained the diplomatic passport solely as a gesture of political and professional courtesy extended to him in his capacity as former Prime Minister. He also contended that under Dominican law, the voluntary act of acquiring and using a diplomatic passport by a non-citizen does not place the holder under an acknowledgement of allegiance or adherence or obedience to Dominica within the said section of the Constitution. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Moving on to May 2019, we did say earlier that 2019 was an intriguing year for news in St. Kitts and Nevis. Well, these next two stories chronicle the saga of billionaire investor Alki David, who expressed an interest to invest in a cannabis industry on St. Kitts, who ended up getting arrested along with his associates, and while at the same time making allegations against Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris. Dr. Harris rubbished the claims. A billionaire investor who was arrested last week by the authorities in St. Kitts and Nevis plans to file a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris. Alki David was arrested on May 9th on 3 warrants for drug importation, possession and intent to supply. Mr. David was arrested on May 9th when he was about to leave St. Kitts and Nevis on his private jet after visiting the country with his business partners to meet farmers on the island in a bid to begin a cannabis business on the island. One of the business partners, he disclosed, was arrested over the weekend and up to news time was still incarcerated. At a press conference on Monday at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort, Mr. David said when he arrived on the island, he brought hemp-based products and over 500 hemp seedlings, which do not fall under the category of illegal drugs. Additionally, he said he was allowed to bring these products on the island as he declared them before landing on St. Kitts.
So I was arrested illegally. My people were arrested illegally. And I'll tell you why we were arrested illegally. So we put out a press release. We put out a flight manifest. We put out a radio call. We downloaded the form from the government site for import and export. We appeared at the customs gate with not 11 plants, but actually 550 plants, not 5,000 plants, 550 itty-bitty little seedlings, this high, 3 inches high, 550 of them in a box this big. And we have been tested ad nauseum by the authorities.
Mr. David made some strong allegations, including an alleged meeting with Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris at the Park Hyatt Resort, which eventually led to the arrest of his business partner.
I had a little meeting yesterday with Mr. Harris at the Hyatt Hotel. It was a very civil meeting, very polite meeting. I sat down opposite him. It was very, very nice. We sat and talked for 15 minutes. I left. I had been asked to do something I didn't want to do. So I left, and then Chase went in and started having a conversation with him. Then a bunch of witnesses who worked there at the Hyatt Hotel saw his guards pick Chase up and take him out. And the next thing we know, he's been arrested for drugs, for cocaine, which is ketamine, which is his medicine that has been taken away from him, and he's now languishing in a jail. So let me tell you, Mr. Harris, what's going to go down. There are 3 lawyers from London in the back room there, and they're going to take you down, sir. You don't do that to me or to my friend.
On irate, Mr. David was asked if he would still do business with the government if the opportunity presents itself, despite the sour start.
I really like to stay apolitical. You'd be surprised, but I don't like politics at all. I like to stay out of them. You know, we have a plan where we don't need government licenses. We have a plan where we grow a plant that is a plant, and it's a medicinal plant, and it's not a restricted plant. We didn't bring in even cannabis. We brought in a cousin of cannabis that has been genetically modified. So under the laws here, guess what? We're not breaking any laws there either. And all of this is going to come out in the court. So to answer your question, yes, still I would, because I'm a businessman. I do a deal with Harris today. You know, I do a deal with Harris today. If he gives the farmers licenses now, today, to start farming rather than excuse me, for another 3 months. The thing is this, is that people should be farming, planting seeds now. We brought seeds. People should be planting and farming now, right now. Not in 3 months, waiting for this law to pass, you know, to read the 2nd and 3rd act of the law. They should be reading it now, tonight, and getting it done and pushing it through, and all the hard work that the Rastas have done should start paying off now. Not in 3 months, and not let Mr. Harris derail it again.
Mr. David displayed hemp-based products at the press conference under his brand Swiss X. The press conference was attended by opposition leader and the president of Global Life Foundation, GLF, Dr. Denzel Douglas, and Labour Party chairman, Dr. Terence Drew, as well as Ras Aya of the Nyabinga Theocracy Order in St. Kitts. A press release from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force said that Mr. David was arrested on May 9th and appeared in court the following day. He was released on cash bail of $30,000, 50,000 in 2 sureties, ordered to surrender all travel documents, and ordered to report to the Frigate Bay Police Station daily. He appears in court on Tuesday. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline. Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris has refuted claims that he met with billionaire investor Mr. Alcibiades Alki David or his associates at the Park Hyatt Hotel. Mr. David, in a press conference on Monday, claimed Dr. Harris met with him and his business partner at the hotel on the weekend, and that talks broke down because he did not want to do what he was asked by the Prime Minister. His business partner eventually got arrested after speaking to the Prime Minister and is currently in jail up to news time. But Prime Minister Harris, while speaking on radio show Straight Talk on Win FM Thursday, denied these claims.
I want to make it absolutely clear that certainly neither Mr. David nor Mr. Edwards or Mr. Charles, whatever name he carries, are friends, investors, partners, or have any relationship with myself. And I have never organized or in fact engaged in any meeting with either parties.
The Prime Minister further explained that Mr. David sought him to complain about his arrest at the RLB International Airport for the possession and importation of a controlled substance.
On Sunday last, I had reason to be at the Park Hyatt. I was accosted by a gentleman who in the end identified himself as Mr. David. And we had an interaction for about a minute and a half. Because once I realized who he was, I then got a preview of the kind of character, unstable and unbalanced he was. He said to me, "Your government arrested me illegally." And I looked at him, in disbelief. One, I didn't know who he was until he made the approach. And secondly, that he would come to the head of a country in that particular matter. And I said to him, if you come to a country and you don't know the laws, you should consult with your lawyer or the government. And before I could have finished that, the guests on whom I was awaiting to have had a lunch arrived, and Mr. David walked away.
Prime Minister Harris said that he does not or have ever had any form of relationship, whether personal or otherwise, with Alki David or Chase Ergen. Dr. Harris said he was at the time out of the country on official CARICOM business and said he was first made aware of Mr. David's presence in the country after the matter became international headlines.
I knew of Mr. David after the matter broke in the news, and let's not forget the sequence. I was away in Costa Rica up until the 8th, I think it was, of this month. By the time I got home, this matter had already become an international story. I think it was on or about the 9th or thereabout, these parties would have been charged. Mr. David was charged on the advice and guidance of the Director of Public Prosecution, according to the release from that office.
According to the police, Charles Edwards, the other business associate of Mr. David, was formally charged with 3 offenses on Wednesday, May 15th for threatening language, resisting arrest, and a battery on police. The offenses took place at the Park Hyatt St. Kitts on Sunday, May 12. Mr. Alki David appeared in court Tuesday morning, charged with possession of a controlled drug, possession with intent to supply, and importation of a controlled drug. He was remanded to prison after his bail was raised from $30,000, set at an early appearance in court on May 9th, to $300,000, cash bail, and $600,000 with 2 sureties. Mr. David claimed he had brought in 550 hemp seedlings into the country as part of engaging farmers on St. Kitts in a bid to begin a cannabis industry on the island. However, the seedlings were confiscated, and on his return to the RLB International Airport to leave the country, he was arrested and charged. SK Newsline will continue to monitor this story. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. The Nevis Island administration responded to a UK Guardian newspaper article that links the country's citizenship by investment program to tax fraud implicating a Russian businessman. Premier Mark Brantley has expressed concern about what he terms misinformation from a Guardian newspaper article and the implications this could have on St. Kitts and Nevis. The article suggested that a sanctioned Russian national Andrei Pavlov used a St. Kitts and Nevis passport to travel to 70 countries within the EU. However, there is no evidence Mr. Pavlov has a St. Kitts and Nevis passport, though he reportedly sought one through the country's Citizenship by Investment program. 2 European MPs have written to the European Commission President calling for visa-free travel to Europe for St. Kitts and Nevis passport holders to be revised. But Mr. Brantley, speaking at his monthly press conference recently, was very critical of the article, noting that he was interviewed by the reporter who wrote it.
And it turns out that a law firm contacted me in 2014. That law firm did not indicate who their client was. They simply said they had a client interested in citizenship by investment. I think, as all would know, I have not practiced law since 2013, when the Concerned Citizens Movement won the government and I became Deputy Premier. And so when that colleague, good friend of mine, got in touch with me saying that he had a client who was interested, I referred the colleague to the law firm of Daniel Brantley, where he would normally have done business. He would have contacted me in my capacity as someone associated with the law firm of Daniel Brantley, and I simply referred him through. I want to make it pellucid that at no point have I met, conversed with, had any association or contact with Mr. Pavlov or anyone else in that regard.
Mr. Brantley also slammed the EU for failing to detect Mr. Pavlov's travels despite the sanctions against him.
But what is interesting is that only 3 of the 28 countries of the EU have put any ban on Mr. Pavlov. I want you to reflect on that. Only 3 of 28 members of the EU have put any ban. So obviously they have not banned him. He's free to travel within the EU. So if he has gone to Germany or to United Kingdom or to Italy or France, he's free to do so. There's no ban on him. So one has to ask the question, what was the objective of these MEPs? And for the Guardian, a respected newspaper, on the basis of that information to write an article seeking to somehow involve the good name of St. Kitts and Nevis, it makes no sense.
But the opposition Nevis Reformation Party NRP have been very critical of Mr. Brantley. The Guardian article suggested that Mr. Pavlov contacted Mr. Brantley's law firm, Daniel Brantley and Associates, to assist him to apply for St. Kitts Nevis passports for himself and family. The article said that the contact took place in 2014. At that time, Mr. Brantley was Deputy Premier. First Vice President of the NRP, Dr. Kelvin Daly, speaking on Freedom Radio's Issues program, slammed Mr. Brantley.
During the conversation, apparently that the associate had with Mr. Brantley concerning the acquisition of passports, or SKN passports, the Deputy Premier referred the intermediary to his law firm, Daniel Brantley Associates. This is what the Guardian is reporting. So he is soliciting business directly to his law firm. He could have said, go talk to some other law firm, go talk to Patrice Nisbet or Jeffrey Nisbet. He could have said, go talk to anybody who does the CBI. But he referred the intermediary directly to his law firm, Daniel Brantley Associates.
Dr. Daly suggested that based on the information in the article, Mr. Brantley exercised poor judgment.
All he had to do was Google the name. I did it, and 2 seconds I had information. This man was on blacklist prior to 2014. He was not on a blacklist in 2014 alone. Prior to 2014, he was on the list. And here is our Deputy Premier soliciting business from him. And now he's on Facebook defending, trying to get ahead of the story and say he never met the gentleman. The deal never came to fruition.
Premier Brantley stated that there was no evidence that Mr. Pavlov attained a St. Kitts Nevis passport through the Citizenship by Investment program, and that he was never a client of his law firm. Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris was also critical of the European MPs for expressing concern about St. Kitts and Nevis' visa-free status based on inaccurate information. Mr. Brantley, who is also the Minister of Foreign Affairs, said he will be responding to the letter from the European MPs pertaining to visa-free travel. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. The construction of a new Bastyr High School and the controversy surrounding that continue to be a hot topic throughout 2019. In May, the Ministry of Education hosted a town hall meeting to get the views of citizens on the project, while at the same time providing an opportunity for project stakeholders to inform attendees.
Stakeholders of the construction of the new Bastyr High School has sought to allay fears of contamination of the underground water in the Bastyr Valley Aquifer at a town hall meeting on Wednesday night at the Tucker Clark Primary School. The panel of experts comprised Chairman of the Innotech Services St. Kitts Limited, Anthony De Silva, Water Engineer Dr. Hallisey Haley, Senior Principal, Stantec Caribbean, Mr. Andrew Hutchinson, Director of the Development Control Planning Board, Mr. Randolph Edmead, and D&B Project Manager, Innotech Services St. Kitts Limited, Mr. Ian Rogers. Mr. Vincent Hodge, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, chaired the function as each of the experts made presentations on the various aspects of the project and why contamination of the underground water is unlikely to occur. However, after the presentation, patrons were afforded the opportunity to ask questions, which were answered by members of the panel. Here are highlights.
With all the expertise and the type of things I heard here, the soil testing and the sewage and whatever, why can't we clean up the old Bastyr High School? I'm not talking, yes, and I'm not talking about, at this point, building on it. I'm talking about why have we kept a site like that in such a decrepit, dirty, environmental hazardous condition.
When I recognize the quality and qualifications of our local people, I am still wondering and baffled. Why is it that some of our local engineers, why some of our architects are still playing second fiddle? Why? It is bothering to me.
And I want to touch on the last question, I believe, from Mr. Warner, who addressed me specifically about local involvement. And I can assure you that I have met with Mr. Warner. He might not recall it, but I have met with him. And we've discussed his involvement in the project at the Bastyr High School. So I don't know exactly what it is he's complaining about, but we've discussed his involvement. Now, if he doesn't want to be involved, then he ought only need to send me a letter in that regard.
So these are the wells in the Bastyr, and our school is way down here somewhere, all right? And so there's a hydraulic gradient here, and it's going down gradient towards the sea. So it's not, whatever we put in the ground is highly treated, but it's not possible for it to flow uphill. Water doesn't go up a hill, it goes down a hill.
Because he has led the audience to believe that water only flows uphill. Sorry, downhill. From my experience and training, I know that moisture moves from lower levels in the soil to higher levels through capillary reaction, and also groundwater can reverse their flow path because groundwater flow from hydraulic head to a lower hydraulic head.
I think it's stated quite clearly that the hydraulic gradient in this case is from north to south. Cannot be reversed in this case. Now there are other cases in other places that maybe not an island nation where you can have groundwater flow in different directions, but in this particular case of the Bastyr Valley watershed, because of the topography and because of the geology, the hydraulic gradient is from north to south.
And one of the things that struck me, first off, like it did Mr. Blanchett apparently, was the disclaimer. Yes, I know it was said that it's standard operating procedure, but it made me uncomfortable. You're supposed to stand by what you believe in.
The intent of what's written here, if we provide a report, advice to a client, that advice is intended for the use of that client. All this is saying is that if a third party chooses to take this report and run and do it, we're not responsible. That's all it says. Read it carefully.
Former principal of the Bastyr High School, who is now the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Mrs. Carleen Henry Morton, gave a statement during the question and answer segment about the situation pertaining to the school.
The same people who are asking a lot of questions now about the hypothetical watched when the actual illnesses were taking place. Never asked a question. Never asked a question. And a number of them were doctors. Divided by the Bastille High School by a fence. Never asked a question. The ambulance used to make trips up there 3 and 4 times in a week. Never a question. People broke out with sores and all kind of things. Never a question. But everybody concerned now conveniently about hypothetically, maybe something gonna happen. And I am not saying that something may not happen. But I am saying that if we had a quarter of the concern back then, we would not have been here.
We'll provide more reports on this forum in a subsequent newscast. I'm Andre Huey, reporting for SKN Newsline. The 2019 St. Kitts Music Festival was rated the best ever with record attendance numbers, especially on the final night when reggae superstar Buju Banton took the stage.
Over 27,000 patrons attended the 2019 St. Kitts Music Festival, according to Minister of Tourism Lindsay Grant. At a press conference, spoke of the significance of this outcome, making the festival the best in its history.
As the chairman said, Thursday night 6,152, Friday night 6,777, Saturday night 14,210, for a global total record of 27,139 patrons attending the St. Kitts Music Festival. We have to contrast that, because even when you looked at the Saturday night with 14,210, we knew that Buju Banton performed in Jamaica to a crowd of some 40,000. Jamaica with a population of 2.3, thereabout, million people. St. Kitts, we put 14,000 people with a population of 50,000. That was fantastic.
The minister also disclosed that the exposure of the island has benefited significantly from the festival through international media coverage. He said over 50 journalists were hosted from overseas.
This year we had 53 million plus impressions all across North America and the UK. Hype magazine, 18.3 million impressions. WVIP, 16 million impressions. The South magazine, 160,000 impressions. Inspire in Style, 825,000 impressions. And Billboard magazine, 18 million impressions, for a total of 53 million impressions all across the globe. This year we hosted more than 20 journalists from all across the Caribbean, Canada, North America, and the United Kingdom. Here we had MTV UK, Hype magazine, Billboard magazine, South magazine from the US, Style and Inspire magazine, New York's WVIP radio, Selling Travel from the UK, Antigua's ABS TV, Grenada's GBN TV, St. Martin Laser 101, Caribbean Broadcasting Network CBN, and Alize's TV out of Guadeloupe.
Meanwhile, Damian Hobson, chairman of the St. Kitts Music Festival, spoke to the economic impact of the festival to St. Kitts and Nevis. He stressed that there were not enough hotel beds to accommodate the influx of visitors to the island.
24 years ago in 1996, the main reason for the festival was to put heads in beds. Low occupancy was a major problem then, but I'm happy to report that for 2019, the problem we had was that we did not have enough beds in which to place the many heads that traveled to our shores for the festival. Put another way, we ran out of beds.
Mr. Hobson suggested that considering the increase of tourists during the festival, there is need for a different approach.
We might therefore have to rethink the idea behind the music festival. I want to suggest that we now must focus our efforts on Destination St. Kitts in June. It shouldn't matter what location the event is being held at or who the artists are. We just want persons to book their flights and reserve their accommodation for 2020 and every year after. All 11 bar owners made profits. Well over 300 persons worked directly with the St. Kitts Music Festival. Local craft vendors like Carla Astafan have all called and said how pleased they were with their results. Marshall Restaurant said it was the best week after music festival, averaging over 100 placings per night. Spratnet has said they saw tremendous growth during the week after, with many persons still on island. The local hardware stores too was sold out of plywood. These are just a few of the success stories that make our efforts worthwhile. This is just a glimpse of the picture of success.
Mr. Hobson noted that all service providers have been paid. He thanked the sponsors, contributors, volunteers, and patrons who have all helped to make the event a success. Mr. Hobson said cost for organizing the festival is about $6.3 million. I am Namayambam Gonalo for SKN Newsline.
But the music festival was not without controversy, as one artist, Farmer Nappy, slammed the organizers for not facilitating a live band to back up his performance on the first night. Namayombo Mganela reports.
St. Kitts Nevis music fans are up in arms with the recent comments of soca artist Farmer Nappy about his performance at the recently concluded St. Kitts Music Festival. While performing at an event in St. John's, USVI recently, Farmer Nappy was asked by a patron why he performed better at that event compared to the music festival. The artist's response earned the ire of Kittitians on social media. Here is a video of the exchange.
You was in St. Kitts? How I perform in St. Kitts? I perform here better. You know why? You know why I perform here better? Karen, look the opportunity to tell she now. I want you to go and tell the minister culture in St. Kitts. Why ain't you saying what's in St. Kitts? Right. But only people from St. Kitts. I want all to tell all your government. When from an happy and them come, give we live band. We like we live band. Make some noise suspect from the live band.
The comments on social media berated the soca artist. One user said, "Too many good artists out there to accept his disrespect. He should have said this before the check." Another said, "Some artists are not performers. They're only great in studio." Another said, "You get pay, so you should have bring your band out of your own pocket." But noted Kittitian sound engineer Azam Bailey is standing in Farmer Nappy's corner. Speaking on the radio show Let's Talk St. Kitts and Nevis recently on SKN Newsline's sister radio station Voice of the Caribbean Radio, Mr. Bailey said Farmer Nappy made a valid point in his comments.
What he's really saying is, I prefer to perform with a live band, and if I do perform with a live band, my ability to produce something of quality is raised drastically, right? So when he say, you all go and tell the people in St. Kitts or whatever, he's telling them, for me to perform better for you, so that you could have a better show, so that I am put in a position to succeed. You go and tell the organizers that we need live band. Now what could be wrong with that? Like, that is something that even the artists here in St. Kitts have been bawling about for years.
Mr. Bailey said the organizers of the St. Kitts Music Festival appeared to be interested in packing the soca night with a lot of artists, and this is affecting the quality of the production.
I think they genuinely decided we want to give the patrons more for their money, and what that meant to them was more artists, right? However, now you have certain constraints now. All those artists can't come, yes. Some of the artists might prefer to have a band or whatever, and because that gives them the opportunity to put their best foot forward and deliver the best product. But that is just impossible to have 11 bands coming on and off the stage, right? The show can finish just before the show's supposed to start on Friday, right? So what has happened in the past, and what I suggest for the Thursday night, is instead of having so much acts, what we want to do is go for quality.
Interestingly, at no point in our interview with Farmer Nappy backstage at the music festival did he hint to a concern about performing on tracks.
My performance was very nice tonight. You know, the crowd, you know, it have a lot of ladies. So my music is for ladies, you know what I mean, and relationship a lot, you know, deep into relationship in my lyrics. You know, the crowd is very warm. It's have a huge crowd, and that will like assistant kids is a warm and wonderful place.
The Music Festival Committee has not officially responded to the claims, but announced this week that it will be hosting a press conference next week, Wednesday, where the question about Farmer Nappy's comments is bound to come up. I am Namayam Ganalo for SKN Newsline.
The President of the Republic of China on Taiwan, Her Excellency Tsai Ing-wen, made her first state visit to St. Kitts and Nevis in July. More from Namayombo Ngunela.
President of the Republic of China on Taiwan, Her Excellency Dr. Tsai Ing-wen, arrived for her first state visit to St. Kitts and Nevis on Saturday night aboard China Airlines at the RLB International Airport. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis, led by Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris, rolled out the red carpet to welcome President Tsai on her first state visit to St. Kitts and Nevis. She was warmly greeted at the airport with a military salute from an honor guard comprised of soldiers from the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force, the Coast Guard unit, and officers from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Prime Minister Harris introduced Her Excellency Dr. Tsai Ing-wen to the members of the federal cabinet. Dr. Harris was also introduced to President Tsai's ministerial and parliamentary delegation. On Sunday, President Tsai held bilateral talks with Prime Minister Harris, followed by a dinner at the Park Hyatt Resort, hosted by the Prime Minister. Both governments signed an agreement on cooperation in technical and vocational education and training in a brief ceremony on Sunday, July 14th at the Park Hyatt, St. Kitts. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education Sean Richards signed the agreement along with Taiwan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. the Honorable Zhao Shuang Wu. This agreement is to assist St. Kitts and Nevis with cultivating vocational education of teachers, establishing a comprehensive vocational education system, and providing high school graduates with professional skills. The signing, which was witnessed by President Tsai, Prime Minister Dr. Harris, and other dignitaries, formed part of the President's official state visit to St. Kitts and Nevis and other diplomatic allies in the Caribbean. Meanwhile, the highlight thus far of the President's visit is the conferring of one of the highest national honors of St. Kitts and Nevis. President Tsai, on Monday, July 15th, received the Order of St. Christopher and Nevis, the highest honor St. Kitts and Nevis bestows on a non-national. The President's state visit ends on Tuesday, July 16th, where she will depart to visit other islands in the Eastern Caribbean. I am Namayambam Ganala for SKN Newsline.
It was an active sport month for St. Kitts and Nevis, and the Federation sent 3 athletes to the Pan Am Games in Lima, Peru. SK Newsline was in Peru under the auspices of the St. Kitts and Nevis Olympic Committee. These reports give an insight into the performances of the athletes.
It was a valiant fight from Jason Rogers, but unfortunately he did not manage to medal. I'm Andre Huey coming to you from Lima, Peru for the Pan Am Games 2019, where Jason Rogers for St. Kitts Nevis ran in the 100-meter finals. He finished at 7th place with a time of 10.40 seconds. He led the race up to 60, but just fell away just before the race ended. The race eventually was won by Michael Rogers of the United States with a time of 10.09, followed by Andre Camillo de Oliveira with a time of 10.16. And third place going to a Caribbean athlete, Antigua and Barbuda CJ Green, with a time of 10.23. We spoke to Jason Rogers after the race. Obviously he was disappointed, but he was pleased with the effort he gave.
I'm actually feeling good. You know, I came out, I gave it my best shot. Well, not my best shot, but I tried my best to execute and put the race together, but it just didn't happen. I mean, I came up against a very good field despite the circumstance, and I tried, and I'm just thankful that I finished injury-free, thankful for all the support, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity to be here and represent the Federation. In the past, my first race with actually be like very slow, but my body has responded very good for the first race out here because of the level of competition. So, I mean, going forward, it's a good look, despite the 7th place finish. It's a good look for the future, so I'm pretty happy about that. What's next? I'm not sure. I got to talk to coach, see if we're gonna keep running or shut down the season and focus on next season. So, left to see what he has in store.
So there you have it there, Jason Rogers of St. Kitts Nevis, finishing 7th place with a time of 10.40 in the men's 100-meter finals. St. Kitts Nevis has one more chance for a medal. It will be Jermaine Francis. He'll be competing in the high jump semi-finals on Friday, August 9th. And from all accounts from his coach, he is looking good going into that event. We'll see what will come of that. Of course, this is his first Pan American Games. And I just need to note this, of course, that the Pan American 100-meter records in the men's 100 meters is owned by our very own Kim Collins. He ran that time of 10 seconds flat in Guadalajara, Mexico back in 2011. Coming to you from Lima, Peru for the Pan American Games, I'm Andre Huey. Down but not out. That's the spirit of St. Kitts Nevis high jumper Jermaine Francis. I'm Andre Huey coming to you from the Athletic Stadium in Lima, Peru for the 2019 Pan Am Games. And Jermaine Francis of St. Kitts Nevis competed in the high jump on Friday afternoon. Unfortunately, he didn't finish on the medal podium. He finished in the 13th place, but he's still in high spirits. We spoke to Jermaine after his event.
I went into the event with a strong mind. I thought I could have pulled some magic out of the hat, but things didn't turn out how I wanted to turn. But I can't say it's the weather, it's the place, it's just me. It's just the way of life to me. I just gotta go home and just start from the square roots and just get back into shape. Cause I'm not in shape right now, so I just gotta come back hard and do my best next day. Well, my first Panama experience is, well, this is a great experience to me. I love the people are so nice to me, and the coach is just giving a loving feel to everybody. But I would like to come to the second Pan Am Games. It's gonna be tough. I gotta go back home in my little country and do my best in training and just be strong and just don't give up. Well, I was trying to go to Worlds, try to qualify for Worlds, so I got my eyes on the 2020 Olympics. So I gotta set my mind to train harder and do my best in everything.
The high jump was won by Luis Fernandez from Cuba. It was very impressive. He got over the bar in most of his first attempts throughout the competition. So he won the gold medal for Cuba. Silver went to Robert Mason of Canada, also a very excellent athlete, did very well, but was just edged out there by Cuba. And the bronze medal went to Roberto Ruiz Sanchez of Mexico. So again, Jermaine Francis of St. Kitts Nevis competed in the high jump. However, finished in 13th position, did not medal, but he's still in good spirits and he's looking forward to the other major events, most likely the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. And that's it for St. Kitts Nevis here at the Pan American Games. The 4 athletes have already competed and they gave their best. In a subsequent report, you'll hear from Coach Lonzo Wilkinson on his assessment of the athletes' performance in the Pan American Games 2019 for St. Kitts Nevis. Reporting from Lima, Peru at the Athletic Stadium for SK Newsline and the St. Kitts Nevis Olympic Committee, I'm Andre Huey.
In August 2019, on the education front, the Ministry of Education, as is customary, announced the 2019 CXC results. Here's SK Newsline's Glenn Barrett.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education Sean Richards has suggested satisfactory performance in this year's CXC examinations. Speaking at a 15th August press conference at the OTI, Education Minister Richards presented the preliminary results that included CAPE and CSEC examinations. Just in the CSEC alone, the preliminary results indicate an over 80% mark of acceptable passes.
We are certain to have quite a few smiling faces today based on what we have seen to date. CAPE students accessed their results on Tuesday, August 13th and CCSLC yesterday. CSEC results. Within the Federation, 1,661 candidates wrote 5,339 subjects. Of that amount, 354 candidates sat exams in Nevis and 1,307 candidates wrote exams in St. Kitts, of which 752 were school candidates and 909 were private. Of the 5,339 subject entries, 4,271 were school candidates and 1,068 from private. Acceptable grades returned, that is grades 1 to 3, were 4,291. Of that amount, schools returned 3,565 and 726 for private, for a national pass rate based on the preliminary results for CSEC 2019 of 80.37%.
Most students in the Federation would have access to the results through the CXC online portal. Glenn Burke for SKN Newsline.
Iconic composer Kenrick Georges, the composer of the national anthem of St. Kitts and Nevis, passed away in August. Here is SK Newsline's Glenn Bart with that report.
Citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis have begun to respond to the sad news of the passing of one of the Federation's most iconic musicians. The news spread quickly via social media platforms of the passing of Kenrick Georges, the author of the national anthem of St. Kitts and Nevis. Kenrick, 64, was also a music arranger and composer for many artists, and some persons will also remember him from his early days in association with the uniquely sounding band, the Grand Dash 2. Georges, who hailed from Newtown, Bastille, was widely known for the creation of the national anthem, O Land of Beauty. Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris extended condolences to his family by way of a statement issued from government headquarters, Bastille. Prime Minister Harris said, and quote, Kenrick Georges effortlessly encapsulated a boundless love and patriotic devotion for our newly established nation in 1983, with the composition of a deeply moving and magnificent ode to the country's beauty and tranquility, which is widely and rightly considered to be one of the world's best national anthems. Over 35 years later, our national anthem remains an iconic masterpiece that will forever leave an indelible impression on all citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis and on all of our lives. End of quote. Meanwhile, leader of the parliamentary opposition, former Prime Minister Dr. Denzil Douglas, shared his condolences to the family of the late Kenrick Georges.
It is with deep sadness and utter shock that we learned just moments ago of the passing of Kenrick Georges, formerly of John Street, Newtown, Bastille, here in St. Kitts, but who resided in New York for many, many years. Kenrick was a gentle yet courageous soul who used his extraordinary intellect and exceptional skills in music and poetry to bring life's lessons and joy to all humanity. Kenrick's exploits in the field of music were as prolific as they were brilliant, and throughout his life's journey, he shared his passion for music with his students, members of the community, and his family. In more recent times, he displayed enormous pride over the accomplishments of his son, Kenisha, in the field of music. Kenrick was a musical icon to whom the words and composition of our national anthem, O Land of Beauty, are attributed. Every Kittian and Nevisian has come, or will come, for innumerable years ahead to appreciate the genius and the beauty of the soul of Kenrick by this illustrious work through which he has been immortalized. But beyond his gleaming talents, Kenrick was the exemplary human being. He loved life, he loved his family, he loved people, and of course he loved culture. He taught love, respect, and the values of hard work, independence, and perseverance. Kenrick's love for his homeland epitomizes what it means to be truly Kittitian and Nevisian. But even more than that, Mr. Georges was an advocate for justice. He was a moral compass and a shining light in our community. May the peace of God that passes all understanding comfort his dear family, his friends, and our entire nation during this period of deep mourning. May the soul of our departed friend and brother rest now in peace eternal. Thank you.
Dr. Douglas said Kenrick's love for St. Kitts and Nevis was a perfect example of what it means to be Kittitian and Vision. Glenn Bart for SKN Newsline.
In April of 2019, a footballer with the Rams Village Superstars, Raheem Francis, was stabbed by another football player from the Sol Island Auto Supplies Connery Football Club after a match between both teams. The stab was not fatal, but Premier League matches were suspended for a few days, including the playoffs, and after a lengthy delay, the playoffs were cancelled. In August, the SKNFA donated to Raheem's medical bills. Here was that report. Raheem Francis, the Village Superstars footballer who was stabbed and hospitalized recently, has received a welcome boost from the St. Kitts and Nevis Football Association, the SKNFA. On Thursday, President of the SKNFA, Anthony Johnson, made a presentation of $8,400 to his family to defray the costs of medical expenses incurred as a result of the incident. The presentation took place inside Mr. Johnson's law office in the Sands Complex, Bastyr. Mr. Johnson, during the brief presentation, said the stabbing incident has taken a toll on Raheem's family and the football fraternity, hence the reason he decided to make the donation.
As I believe the entire country is aware, Mr. Raheem Francis underwent a very unfortunate incident a few months ago where he was stabbed and was very much in danger of losing his life. Raheem, as we are aware as well, is one of our most outstanding young footballers, has represented the St. Kitts and Nevis at various youth levels and even recently at the senior level. And so the incident has, I think, taken a very serious toll not only on Raheem, his family, his club, but the entire football fraternity. And so we are fortunate, however, that Raheem is still with us today and is recovering. But of course, the incident would have incurred considerable expenses on Raheem and his family. And so it is in that regard that I have decided to make a donation towards the medical expenses of Raheem in the sum of $8,400. And so I wish to present the check to Raheem and his family.
Raheem's mother, Jacinta Latoya Williams, expressed gratitude for the donation.
Well, as his mom too, I like to thank Johnson for all the help and everyone who came out and supported him in any way. I really, really appreciate it and really grateful that he's here with us. Every day for him, I still look there for him and I'm thankful for everything.
Also on hand to receive the donation was President of the Rams Village Superstars Football Club, Ken Quealy.
Village Superstars, Raheem and his family, we just want to thank Mr. Johnson and the SKNFA for making a serious contribution towards fighting his medical bills and hope it's on the road to recovery for Raheem in the future.
Raheem was stabbed in April of this year by a player from the Connery Football Club after a match involving both teams. He was hospitalized and has since been discharged to complete his recovery. Mr. Johnson noted that the payments for his medical bills from this donation have already been made to the health service providers. It's back to school in September 2019, but not for all students. Students of the high school, the Keon High School, were unable to start within the first few days of school. Why? Because some of the campus buildings contained mold. SK Newsline's Glenn Bart filed this report.
The Keon High School will remain closed until authorities in the Ministry of Education declare the facilities safe to occupy. That was the announcement by Minister of Education Sean Richards in the sitting of the National Assembly held on the 3rd of September 2019.
As a result of this extensive cleaning that is underway at the Keon High School, the Ministry of Education conducted yet another meeting with the staff of the Kayan High School on August 29, 2019 at the ICCS auditorium. At 4:30 p.m. on that same day, officials from the Ministry of Education met with the parents and guardians of students attending the school. The audiences at both meetings received the salient information from the first test carried out by the Bureau of Standards. Both audiences received the commitment of the Ministry of Education that the Kayan High School will be declared safe before teachers and students are allowed to reoccupy the space at this institution. Based on this commitment, the reopening of the Kayan High School for the 2019-2020 school year has been delayed.
The announcement comes just one day after schools in the Federation reopened for the 2019-2020 school year. According to the minister, a recent report from the Kayan High School indicated that mold was present in the school science labs. He said the ministry responded with haste to the reported situation. The minister's statement in Parliament indicated that samples from various parts of the school were sent to the United States for testing and results are expected shortly. Following a meeting between the ministry, teachers of the school and parents, it was agreed that the school will remain closed until it is declared safe. Glenn Bart for SKN Newsline.
In October 2019, Inspector Hilroy Brandy was officially appointed Commissioner of Police. Commissioner Brandy was functioning as acting commissioner for several months since Ian Quealy was placed on leave and was eventually appointed an ambassadorial position with the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS.
The Governor General has accepted the recommendation of the Public Service Commission to appoint Hilroy Brandy as the next Commissioner of Police. According to a press release from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, the appointment took effect from June 1st, 2019. Commissioner Brandy has been acting in the post since October 2018 after retired Commissioner Ian M. Quealy proceeded on leave. However, earlier this year, Mr. Quealy left the force to become the first ambassador of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, to the Kingdom of Morocco. The press release stated that Commissioner Brandy leads the organization on a strong foundation of knowledge built on 38 years of experience in safety and security. He enlisted as a police officer in the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force in 1981. As a young officer, Brandy was first posted at beat and patrol in Bastille. He also worked for some time in the Special Services Unit, SSU, Court and Process in Investigation Department, CID, which he eventually headed. For 10 years, while at CID, he had also been working in the Financial Investigation Unit. This led to his development as a skilled investigator. In 2010, Commissioner Brandy became the divisional commander responsible for Division C. From there, he was appointed Deputy Commissioner in 2016. Commissioner Brandy has also had extensive training in numerous security-related areas, both regionally and internationally. In the statement, Commissioner Brandy said, quote, "I am humbled by this move of confidence in me to lead such a noble organization. Policing has been my life. I want to assure the people of St. Kitts and Nevis that I have committed to serving my country. The safety and security of all citizens and residents is paramount for our nation to thrive, and I will work to ensure that everyone can operate daily with a peace of mind." End quote. He thanked all the persons who supported him over the years and encouraged him through good times and the not-so-good times. He added that he appreciated the commitment of the men and women in the organization who have been working tirelessly to meet the objectives of the policing plan. Commissioner Brandy noted that his management team, the High Command, had also been instrumental in helping him to move the peace process forward and overseeing the operations of the force. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
The senior women's football national team gave us all something to cheer about in October. With excellent performances in the Caribbean round of the CONCACAF Women's Olympic Qualifier held in Trinidad and Tobago.
The Sugar Girls have pulled off a remarkable upset, topping Group A of the CONCACAF Women's Olympic Qualification in Trinidad and Tobago. The women's national team trounced Antigua and Barbuda on Tuesday 10-0 in the final qualification match in Trinidad and Tobago, which was enough to take them ahead of all other teams in the group.
This huge victory followed a 4-1 victory over the home team Trinidad and Tobago, sending shockwaves across the region. Now topping the group, the Sugar Girls are one step closer to Tokyo 2020 Olympic qualification. Speaking after Tuesday's match against Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts Nevis women's national team coach Janae Baklowski said she was super pleased with how the girls played.
Super pleased with how the girls came out and played today. We played strong. We came out quick. We scored a goal in the 4th minute to go up 1-0, and then we really never let our foot off the gas. So it's halftime. It was 6-0, and then we were able to put 4 more goals into the second half, and the final was 10-0. Chloe Gutenberg, who played our attacking center mid, she had a hat trick today, which was fabulous, and we had goals from a lot of different players. We had goals from Phoenicia, from Brittany, from Toji, from Tracy, from Chloe, of course.
Coach Janae said this success will do a lot for football in St. Kitts and Nevis. For one, she believes it will motivate younger female players to come through the ranks and excel at football.
They finished strong, which was what we had talked about all yesterday and all in our pregame. That was our focus, was to finish strong, to get the job done, and now we've put ourselves in a position to qualify. Personally, very excited for what this means for football in St. Kitts Nevis. I think it's going to be inspirational for a group of younger players that we'll look to bring up in another couple years that might be in these girls' shoes. And for this team, their ability to combine and quickly come together as a group, especially since some of them are homegrown and some of them live abroad, but to be able to come together for one collective goal and to put a performance on the field over the course of 2 weeks like we were able to was certainly exceptional and history-making for the team.
Meanwhile, Phoenicia Brown, a member of the St. Kitts Nevis women's national team, said the team is made up of a great and talented group of players, and she is proud of their accomplishment.
We came here on a mission to qualify for the next round, and we did just that. I think we have a great group of players, very talented and driven, and we're all determined to make that happen. And I think with our coaching staff, they prepared us so well for every game. They spent hours scouting the other teams and making sure we put the best team out for every game. So yeah, I'm just very proud of the team and proud of the coaching staff. We've come a long way from other tournaments we've been in. And I think we just represented the country really well. So yeah, we're all excited for the next round.
The Sugar Girls registered 3 big wins and drew one of their matches in this round of the competition, conceding only 3 goals and scoring 20. In addition to the 2 recent victories over Antigua and Barbuda and Trinidad and Tobago, the Sugar Girls defeated Aruba 6-1 and drew 0-0 with the Dominican Republic. In October, I had the distinct pleasure to represent SKN Newsline and by extension St. Kitts and Nevis at the APIC Japan Journalism Fellowship. We were one of 2 media houses to attend the fellowship and one of 4 journalists on the program. Here are 2 of the stories I filed while on the program. Yokohama is considered one of the leading cities in Japan on waste management and recycling. Tomohiro Kamewaka, manager of the Policy Coordination Division of the Resources and Waste Recycling Bureau of Yokohama, gave a briefing to visiting journalists at the Tsurumi Recycling Center on Wednesday. He explained that Yokohama's waste management process is very involved, from collection to waste sorting at the recycling center. Households are expected to place their garbage in separate labeled receptacles for PET bottles, plastic, paper, etc. The waste is collected in garbage trucks where burnable waste is incinerated and non-burnable and recyclable wastes is taken to the recycling center.
Incineration.
As for
burnable waste, they are taken to these incineration facilities. So there are 4 of them in Yokohama. And the Tsurumi Recycling Center, so where we are now, there's incineration plant within this vicinity. And the burning, incineration is done, and the garbage will become ashes. And using the power, actually, say electricity is generated from the heat from the incineration plant.
Built in 1995, the recycling center is equipped with machines for waste processing and garbage sorting, designed to separate collected household waste, which are later packaged and sold to recycling companies in Japan. The ash from the incinerated waste is transported to a secure disposal site in the sea. No need for fear of toxic elements. The waste managers are careful to test the water and minimize seepage. Burnt waste generates power through the incineration plants, which is later sold. This activity earned $29.1 million in 2018. The city switched to sorting 15 types of waste in 2001, and last year close to 2 million tons of waste were collected and 127,000 tons of it buried. As of 2017, Yokohama's annual budget for waste management was 43.5 billion yen, which is around $400 million, or 2.6% of the city's total annual budget. The city continues its public awareness campaign on waste separation, which obviously helps their garbage collection efforts. Households refusing to comply could be fined, but the compliance rate is high.
It's very rare. It's not that we want to collect fine. The idea is that we want people to, abide by rules. So it doesn't really. It's really rare that we actually had to find the person.
I'm Andre Huey, coming to you from Yokohama, Japan, for SKN Newsline. I'm at the Techno Temporary Housing Complex in Kumamoto Prefecture in Japan. This is one of the temporary houses that housed at one point some of the victims of the Kumamoto earthquakes back in April 2016. They were housed here until they were able to rebuild their homes and to be able to be relocated or actually return to their homes. Journalists on the APIC Japan Journalism Fellowship had the unique opportunity on Friday to visit the Techno Temporary Housing Complex. It was designed to house persons left homeless by 2 earthquakes that rocked Kumamoto Prefecture in 2016. A total of 669 temporary houses were made available for Mishiki Town residents. 516 are located at the housing complex we visited. Mr. Jun Ishibashi of Mishiki Town's Life Rebuilding Assistance Program Division said the complex has 7 shops, including a supermarket, hair salon and barbershop, a confectionery and a chiropractor. The authorities learned from past disasters, including the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan's northeast, and this time created an ideal housing layout in the complex to ensure ample space for residents.
2 houses or 3 houses, they are not the like attached long block. The gap in between them. So it used to be 4 meter. Now it's there's a wider sort of street or the gap area of 5.5 meter. And in between these buildings, we have some wooden benches. We made them so as to avoid sort of density.
As people rebuild their homes, they are relocating and moving out of the temporary houses. Mr. Ishibashi said that as of September, only 495 persons occupied 215 homes, a 42% occupancy rate. The complex also features 3 model homes for permanent replacement housing. Each cost 10 million yen, or about $92,000 to construct. The cost does not include the landscaping and fencing, just the house structure, inclusive of air conditioning. However, these houses are built to meet Japan's highest standards for earthquake resistance. Disaster victims are responsible for rebuilding their homes, but get a subsidy of 1 million yen from the central government.
So you should, normally you get, that's a sort of uniform, say, amount, you get 1 million yen. And after that, in addition, say whether it's going to be collective housing or you're going to rebuild the house that you used to live in or repair. So depending on that, and then you get subsidy. And that's also from the central government. You can apply for subsidy. And from prefecture, say that new house is built, and when they move, so all the cost for moving is funded. So it's again the flat rate of 100,000 yen. Also, that's provided to everyone who's moving out of temporary housing.
The model houses on display were quite impressive, and they certainly provide a well-needed buffer to disaster victims as they rebuild their homes and in their lives. Coming to you from the Kumamoto Prefecture in Japan, I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline. The National Assembly debated term limits for prime ministers in December, a promise by the Team Unity government. The bill needed 2/3 of parliament in order to pass, and without the opposition support was unable to become law. But we covered the debate in Parliament on the first couple of days in this report. Parliament on Thursday had the second reading of the Tenure of Office of the Prime Minister Amendment Bill 2019, which seeks to establish the limits for the holder of the Prime Minister. The debate saw the government side proffering a case for term limits, while the opposition argued that the amendment is not possible unless government had its support. Mover of the bill, Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris, said that such legislative reform would promote succession planning that will allow the next generation to take the mantle of leading St. Kitts and Nevis forward.
The first real attempt to bring constitutional change since the Independence Constitution Order of 1983. Many before us have talked about constitutional reform, and they did nothing, not even when they had a sufficiency of representatives to effect constitutional change. Today, Team Unity makes history in being the first to actually propose real and substantive change to the Constitution of 1983. This is an historic bill because today the smallest country, indeed the smallest nation state in the Americas, is leading on fundamental matters of governance, the tenure of office of the head of government.
Prior to the debate, the opposition in a press release argued that it would not support the bill because it was an attempt by the government to prevent opposition leader Dr. Denzil Douglas from becoming Prime Minister again, since he has already served 4 terms as Prime Minister. However, Attorney General Vincent Byron, during Thursday's parliamentary debate, said this would not be the case. Meanwhile, opposition MP Conris Maynard argued that making an amendment to the Constitution to allow for term limits for Prime Minister requires support of 2/3 of the elected members of Parliament, which means government would need the opposition's support. However, Member of Parliament for Nevis 9, Premier Mark Brantley, countered those arguments by accusing the opposition of not supporting the bill and not wanting good governance. Member of Parliament for Nevis 11, Patrice Nisbet, on Friday, as the debate continued, supported Mr. Maynard in that the public and the opposition should be consulted on term limits.
Were there proper ventilation of the ramifications of this idea or concept of term limits? Was it truly properly ventilated to the people? Were the people told what are the ramifications, financial and otherwise, with regards to term limits? If the section demands a certain level of cross-party dialogue, well then some sort of process would have been put in place for that cross-party dialogue to occur.
The bill, which had its first reading on February 21st, 2018, seeks to amend Section 52, which is concerned with the appointment of ministers. The Constitution of St. Christopher and Nevis Tenure of Office Prime Minister Amendment Bill 2019 represents the first real attempt to bring constitutional change since the Independence Constitutional Order of 1983. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. One of the biggest stories we produced in 2019 in terms of numbers of views is this one surrounding a woman who claimed to have given birth to twins in 2004 in Antigua and is now claiming her babies were stolen by hospital staff. We spoke to Kioma Hamer, the mother, in November and filed this report. A woman who is alleging that her babies were stolen from a hospital in Antigua and Barbuda shortly after they were born is calling on the authorities to vigorously investigate the incident. Kioma Hamer, a Dutch citizen from St. Martin, gave birth to twin girls at the hospital in Antigua and Barbuda in 2004. She was in transit in Antigua on a flight from Guyana when she fell ill and had to be rushed to the hospital, where eventually she went into labor and gave birth. But she was told by one of the nurses shortly after giving birth that the babies died.
I remember someone saying it's not sharp enough, and I remember they wrapped the babies in a beige colored cloth and they left the room with them. And as they left the room with the babies were crying. No one came back to me. No one ever come and, no nurse, no doctor, nobody came and did anything to me. I was just told they died. And when I was in ICU, remember, I gave birth the night, late the night, and the following morning, very early in the morning, the doctor started to run tests on me to see what was causing me to be as sick as I was. The moment they received the results, which is the same day, the same morning, the moment they received the results and they saw what the problem was, I was immediately prepped for surgery, for emergency surgery. So I went straight into surgery, and I kept asking all the time. I asked what time did they die, like what was their cause of death and where their bodies are, where they're buried, and no one ever answered me.
After leaving Antigua some days later and upon further investigation, Ms. Hamer noticed some irregularities in the story from the hospital about the death of her babies.
The following day I was discharged, my mom was there, and I received a bill from the hospital, and my mom left someone's name at the hospital in our absence, because we would be returning to St. Martin. In our absence, this would be the person that will come to make the payments on our behalf. We were also instructed that I was not allowed to leave Antigua for at least 1 week because I needed to have like medical checkups. But my medical checkups was not done at the hospital. It was done at the doctor's private clinic. The doctor who operated on me, it was done at his private clinic. So I never returned to the hospital. When we left Antigua the end of September. It was a Thursday. And 5 days after the Tuesday, my mom sent $1,000 Western Union to the person whose name was left at the hospital to make the payments on our behalf. That person collected the money, went to the hospital, called my mom and told my mother, and the hospital said there's no record of any Kioma Hamer ever being at the hospital, and the money was sent back to St. Martin.
A few years later, Hamer made a startling discovery. She recounted a conversation she had with a retired nurse at a conference in Antigua in 2016. According to Hamer, the nurse happened to be one of the nurses who worked that night when she gave birth. She said the retired nurse gave her some information which suggested that one of the nurses on duty that night had something to do with her newborn daughter's mysterious disappearance.
I said my children are not dead and they're alive, and I know they are. But everything was wiped out at the hospital. There's no record of me being there. Like I don't exist. And she looked at me and she said, you know Doris Bob didn't have children. And I look at her. And then she said that night they were alive. And Doris Bob took them to prenatal care. And I asked her, I said, what happened after? She didn't respond with her mouth, with words. She shrugged like her head over her shoulder, like she put her shoulder forward and she shrugged her head all over her shoulder. She goes, oh. She said that Nurse Bob, she wasn't easy. She was something. She wasn't easy. Nurse Bob moved to Canada. No one knew she was going until the appointed time. The only thing she said was, I'm moving to greener pastures. I'm moving to greener pastures. And I asked, I said, how long after did she leave? She said, not long after, a couple months to a year after. And I said, are you telling me that what I have been feeling all of these years that my children are alive? Are you telling me that my children are alive? Nurse Bob moved to Canada, so I guess you have to go to Canada. I asked again, I asked 3 to 4 times, are you telling me that what I have been feeling all of these years, that my children did not die, that they are alive? Are you telling me that my children are alive? Nurse Bob moved to Canada, so I guess you have to go to Canada.
A newspaper article published recently by the Antigua Observer quoted the Minister of Health, Malwin Joseph, as saying he has done what he can and he has handed over the matter to the police. He said, quote, "I did my best and I was able to take it to a certain level, and when it went beyond my authority, I passed on to the police," end quote. Efforts by SK Newsline to reach the Attorney General of Antigua and Barbuda for a comment proved futile. Ms. Hamer, however, is continuing her thrust to find out the truth about her children. Now Ms. Hamer believes her children are alive and separated, but she's disappointed in the manner of the investigations by the Antiguan authorities. She said she was told months ago that she would be called in for a DNA test as part of the investigation, but to this date no one has contacted her, despite repeated attempts to contact the relevant authorities.
I am very sure that this situation is very uprooting for both children, both of the girls, though they are living in separate countries. And it breaks my heart to know that I have to be this public, but I'm not getting the attention that I need. I'm not getting the assistance that I need.
Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Be sure to look for SK Newsline follow-ups on this story. And finally, on the SK Newsline 2019 year in review, we look at the budget debate, what the government and the opposition had to say about the budget in these two stories. Parliament on Thursday had the second reading of the Tenure of Office of the Prime Minister Amendment Bill 2019, which seeks to establish the limits for the holder of the Prime Minister. The debate saw the government side proffering a case for term limits, while the opposition argued that the amendment is not possible unless government had its support. Mover of the bill, Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris, said that such legislative reform would promote succession planning that will allow the next generation to take the mantle of leading St. Kitts and Nevis forward.
The first real attempt to bring constitutional change since the Independence Constitution Order of 1983. Many before us have talked about constitutional reform, and they did nothing, not even when they had a sufficiency of representatives to effect constitutional change. Today, Team Unity makes history in being the first to actually propose real and substantive change to the Constitution of 1983. This is an historic bill because today the smallest country, indeed the smallest nation state in the Americas, is leading on fundamental matters of governance, the tenure of office of the head of government.
Prior to the debate, the opposition in a press release argued that it would not support the bill because it was an attempt by the government to prevent opposition leader Dr. Denzil Douglas from becoming Prime Minister again, since he has already served 4 terms as Prime Minister. However, Attorney General Vincent Byron, during Thursday's parliamentary debate, said this would not be the case. Meanwhile, opposition MP Conris Maynard argued that making an amendment to the Constitution to allow for term limits for Prime Minister requires support of 2/3 of the elected members of Parliament, which means government would need the opposition's support. However, Member of Parliament for Nevis 9, Premier Mark Brantley, countered those arguments by accusing the opposition of not supporting the bill and not wanting good governance. Member of Parliament for Nevis 11, Patrice Nisbet, on Friday, as the debate continued, supported Mr. Maynard in that the public and the opposition should be consulted on term limits.
Were there proper ventilation of the ramifications of this idea or concept of term limits? Was it truly properly ventilated to the people? Were the people told what are the ramifications, financial and otherwise, with regards to term limits? If the section demands a certain level of cross-party dialogue, well then some sort of process would have been put in place for that cross-party dialogue to occur.
The bill, which had its first reading on February 21st, 2018, seeks to amend Section 52, which is concerned with the appointment of ministers. The Constitution of St. Christopher and Nevis Tenure of Office Prime Minister Amendment Bill 2019 represents the first real attempt to bring constitutional change since the Independence Constitutional Order of 1983. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
Leader of the parliamentary opposition, Dr. Denzil Douglas, outlined several initiatives that he said his party will implement after the upcoming general elections. Given the official response to the budget address presented on 12 December by Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris of the Team Unity government, Dr. Douglas said the next-gen SKN Labour Party will focus on putting people first while stimulating and revitalizing the country's economy. Addressing the 13 December National Assembly budget sitting, Dr. Douglas used the occasion to speak about his party's plans if it forms a government after the next elections.
We will bring family-sustaining jobs back to our country. We will bring real investment back to our country, not student dorms masquerading as hotels, but rather no less than 2 exclusive luxury resorts, no less than 2 new factories as well, Mr. Speaker. We of the next-gen SKN Labour Party, we will invest in growth-enhancing capital investment, such as the building of the bridge to Nevis. We will be building a cross-country highway directly connecting West Bastille to Whitegate in St. Paul's. Various urban revitalization projects. We will be modernizing. We will be modernizing all schools.
The opposition leader said the next-gen SKN Labour administration will invest in establishing a medical marijuana industry as well as provide the necessary support that agriculture needs to succeed. Glenn Bart for SKN Newsline.
That will do it for the SK Newsline 2019 Year in Review. From all of us here at SK Newsline, we wish you a happy and prosperous 2020. We look forward to your continued support and we thank you for your support in 2019. I'm Andre Huey. Thank you for watching the Year in Review.